two alien princesses entered the war, and the galaxy braced for chaos. Trade routes connected distant worlds, and ambassadors traveled between planets carrying messages of peace, commerce, and diplomacy. For centuries, the great civilizations maintained a fragile harmony, each wary of upsetting the other. Humans had risen to prominence in the last century, building starships capable of crossing vast distances and learning the ways of the galaxy. Yet, even humans knew that despite their advancements, the galaxy was vast, and its rulers could be unpredictable. It all began on a day that seemed ordinary. In the human colonies of the Sirius sector, people went about their routines. Markets hummed with activity as merchants displayed goods from distant worlds. Children played in the open plazas, chasing small, floating drones that served as toys. Scientists in glass-domed laboratories studied new energy sources, and fleet commanders monitored routine patrols along the space lanes. Humans had grown confident in their abilities, believing that they had learned the rules of galactic politics. They were about to learn that some events could not be predicted or contained. News arrived first as a ripple of whispers. At first, it seemed like a rumor, a tale too fantastic to believe. But soon it became impossible to ignore. Two alien princesses had entered the war. Princess Lyra of Zithera, the crystalline planet where cities sparkled like gemstones under the light of multiple suns, was known for her intelligence, charm, and strategic mind. Princess Corin of Vihara, a volcanic world of flowing magma and towering obsidian spires, was famed for her courage, strength, and direct approach to challenges. Each had been a symbol of her own people's pride and tradition, content to live within the confines of their royal courts. But now, both had chosen to step into a galaxy-wide conflict that threatened to upend everything. The first sighting of Princess Lyra was unforgettable. Her ship arrived without warning, a slender craft that seemed to hum with energy rather than sound. Its hull reflected light in 1,000 colors, as if it were made from living crystal. Citizens of the nearby systems reported seeing the vessel appear out of a jump corridor, materializing as though from a dream. On board, Lyra moved with a quiet confidence, her gaze calm yet assessing. Her mission was not simple. The war had already begun to strain alliances, and her presence promised change. Rumors quickly spread. Lyra was a diplomat and a strategist, capable of turning even her enemies into reluctant allies. Wherever she went, whispers of respect followed. Princess Corin's arrival was equally dramatic, though in a different way. Her ship cut through the stars like a bolt of obsidian lightning. Its angular design suggested strength and readiness, every panel and engine radiating power. When it appeared, alarms sounded on nearby patrol vessels, and people paused in awe. Corin's reputation had reached even the human colonies. She was fearless, direct, and unafraid to challenge anyone, no matter how powerful. She was a princess, yes, but one who had trained in the ways of her world's most elite explorers and strategists. Her appearance in the war was like a spark in dry grass, impossible to ignore. The galaxy braced for their impact. Fleet commanders, council members, and civilian leaders gathered in communication hubs to discuss the implications. Analysts tried to predict what the princesses would do. Would they fight immediately, turning the war into a blaze of destruction? Or would they seek to negotiate, using their influence to shift the balance of power without a single ship firing a shot? No one knew, and the uncertainty brought both excitement and unease. On Earth, in the human capital of Nova City, Admiral Selene Marlowe studied the reports with careful attention. She had seen her share of conflicts, though none like this. Her fleet had grown skilled, and humans had earned a reputation for creativity in battle. But this was something new. Two leaders of immense power and influence, each from a culture vastly different from human understanding, had entered the same conflict. What did that mean for humans? Selene felt a mixture of anticipation and responsibility. The galaxy was changing, and humanity could no longer simply observe from the sidelines. Meanwhile, both princesses were making careful observations of the galaxy and of each other, even before they met. Lyra studied the communications and movements of Corin's forces, noting patterns, strengths, and weaknesses. She admired the discipline of Corin's people, yet she also recognized the limitations of a straightforward approach. Corin, on the other hand, watched Lyra's activities with a critical eye. She recognized cunning and intelligence, but she also suspected hesitation. Each princess was assessing not only the battlefield, but also the character of the other, aware that their eventual confrontation or collaboration could determine the course of the war. Human observers watched in fascination. For the first time, humans felt that their decisions mattered in a way they never had before. They were small players in a vast galaxy, but their adaptability, ingenuity, and willingness to learn made them valuable to both princesses. Fleet engineers shared ideas openly, showing humans how to modify shields and energy systems to respond to the strange technologies of Zithra and Vihara. Strategists debated in councils, arguing over possible alliances, but they all recognized one truth: humans were no longer irrelevant. In the shadows of cosmic power, humans could influence outcomes in ways that even alien royals had to respect. The first contact between Lyra and Corrin took place in the neutral sector known as the Halo Convergence. The location was chosen carefully, a space filled with floating islands of ice and rock where fleets could observe without immediate risk. When the two princesses' ships appeared side by side in orbit, tension rippled through the surrounding systems. Diplomats, soldiers, and citizens watched from safe distances, all aware that history was unfolding. Lyra's ship, radiant with crystalline light, drifted slowly into position. Corrin's dark, angular vessel glided with precise control, engines humming steadily. Neither princess moved to attack. Instead, they exchanged signals, light pulses, encoded communications, and holographic messages. Humans monitoring the exchange struggled to interpret the subtleties. To the untrained eye, nothing seemed to happen, yet every gesture was charged with intention. Lyra's message emphasized cooperation and careful negotiation. Corrin's response stressed strength and direct action. It was clear. The two princesses represented opposing philosophies, and yet somehow both commanded the attention and respect of the galaxy. For weeks, the two princesses remained in observation, each learning from the other while humans watched closely. Lyra demonstrated the art of influence, shifting minor skirmishes into opportunities for dialogue and alliances. Corrin showed how decisive action could achieve rapid results and inspire loyalty. Both methods were effective, but neither was complete without the other, and humans, caught in the middle, began to see a role they had never imagined. Fleet commanders adapted, engineers innovated, and diplomats found new ways to negotiate that incorporated lessons from both alien cultures. Rumors spread of small but significant successes. On the outer rim of the galaxy, a disputed mining colony avoided a skirmish entirely thanks to Lyra's intervention. In another system, Corrin's bold leadership prevented a breakdown in supply chains, saving countless lives. Humans who observed these events began to understand a truth that had been invisible to them before. The galaxy was not just a place of raw power or strategy. It was a place where creativity, courage, and cleverness could change outcomes, sometimes even more than sheer force. By the end of the first month, the human colonies were buzzing with excitement and speculation. Scholars wrote treatises on the tactics of Lyra and Corrin, while children reenacted their maneuvers with model ships in plazas and classrooms. Merchants sold trinkets and replicas of the princesses' ships. Even ordinary citizens felt the thrill of being part of something larger, a story unfolding across the stars. The galaxy had shifted, and humans sensed that they were part of this shift, no longer merely observers but participants in the shaping of history. Yet the true implications of the princesses' entry into the war remained hidden. No one knew if the encounter between Lyra and Corrin would lead to collaboration, conflict, or a mixture of both. The galaxy waited with bated breath, aware that even small choices by these powerful figures could ripple outward in ways impossible to predict. Humanity, too, held its collective breath. Their ingenuity, their willingness to learn, and their courage might prove to be crucial, but the galaxy remained a place of mystery, challenge, and infinite possibility. In that moment, as the stars twinkled and ships glided silently through the void, a single truth became clear. The war was no longer just a conflict of worlds. It was becoming a story of connection, strategy, and discovery, where humans, guided by curiosity and adaptability, could step into the light of history alongside the galaxy's greatest leaders. And in this story, the arrival of two alien princesses had begun not with destruction or fear, but with fascination, respect, and the hint of something extraordinary. The galaxy, it seemed, was ready to watch the future unfold. The calm of the Halo convergence did not last long. Though Princess Lyra and Princess Corrin had begun their cautious observations, the galaxy could not wait. Everywhere, fleets, diplomats, and citizens watched with anticipation. The war, though quiet in some sectors, was far from over. Rumors and reports traveled faster than light, spreading tales of extraordinary ships and strange new tactics. Humanity, now keenly aware of its potential, had begun stepping into the complex patterns of galactic conflict with confidence and creativity. Lyra continued to study Corrin's methods, noting every detail of her strategy. Corrin favored speed, decisiveness, and direct action. Where Lyra might take days to influence allies and manipulate outcomes carefully, Corrin moved in hours, turning situations to her advantage with remarkable clarity. Humans were fascinated. Scientists and strategists in Nova City analyzed every maneuver, comparing it with human approaches. They saw lessons not only in military strategy, but in diplomacy, engineering, and leadership. Lyra and Corrin were teaching the galaxy, intentionally or not, about new ways to solve old problems. The first real challenge came in the form of a neutral system, Arvona, known for its energy-rich planets and small but clever population. Two factions, long at odds over the mining of Arvona's rare crystals, were on the verge of a confrontation. Lyra saw an opportunity to demonstrate her approach. Using her ship's communications array, she sent messages of negotiation and collaboration to both sides, highlighting shared benefits and proposing joint solutions. At the same time, she encouraged human engineers and diplomats to help manage communications and logistics. Humans were surprised but eager to contribute, creating small systems that allowed messages, data, and resources to flow efficiently. Corrin, arriving shortly afterward, took a different approach. She personally visited the orbital stations of both factions, using her presence and confidence to inspire cooperation. Rather than issuing commands, she asked questions and listened, prompting leaders to realize the value of unity themselves. Her methods were bold but respectful. Lyra's networked approach and Corrin's personal engagement complemented each other in a way that no one could have predicted. By the end of a week, what could have been a violent dispute had transformed into a cooperative enterprise, with humans playing a vital role in coordination and planning. The success in Arvona did not go unnoticed. Across multiple sectors, the galaxy began to see a pattern. Where conflict might have spread, careful strategy, courage, and creative thinking could turn potential destruction into constructive solutions. Humans, often underestimated, became recognized as capable problem solvers. Fleet officers who had once doubted their skills now took pride in their innovations. Engineers who had feared alien technology now experimented with integrating ideas from Zithara's crystalline systems and Vihara's sturdy, heat-resistant designs. Even ordinary citizens, watching from colony habitats, were inspired to imagine possibilities they had never considered. Meanwhile, tensions simmered in other regions. Not all systems were ready for peace or cooperation. Some factions feared the growing influence of humans and the alien princesses, viewing their alliance as a threat. Communications networks buzzed with speculation, reports, and strategic warnings. Lyra and Corrin were aware that their efforts were being watched closely, yet they remained focused on their goals. Lyra believed in building networks of trust, while Corrin relied on clarity of action and personal leadership. Both were learning from each other, gradually understanding that their differences could be their greatest strength if combined wisely. On Earth, Admiral Selene Marlowe convened a new council to study the emerging strategies. Scientists, diplomats, and fleet commanders gathered in the largest communication hub. Holographic maps displayed the positions of fleets, resources, and trade routes. Analysts shared projections based on the movements of Lyra and Corrin, predicting potential conflicts and alliances. Each projection highlighted one central truth: humans could influence outcomes in ways previously unimaginable. The council debated, adjusted plans, and implemented new protocols for fleet coordination and resource sharing. For the first time, humans felt they were shaping the course of history rather than reacting to it. In the midst of this preparation, an unexpected event occurred. A small, independent research vessel from a distant human colony encountered a problem near the edge of the Orion corridor. The ship's engines malfunctioned, leaving it stranded. The crew sent out distress signals, fearing they would be lost in the void. Both Lyra and Corin, monitoring interstellar communications, detected the signals. Without hesitation, they acted, not as rulers or generals, but as protectors. Lyra directed a series of communications that allowed the ship to realign its emergency systems. Corin piloted her vessel to assist physically, offering guidance and support. Humans observed, amazed by the combination of intelligence and courage. The stranded crew was rescued, and the incident became a celebrated story of interstellar cooperation. The rescue had broader implications. Many systems had previously assumed that the conflict would mean sacrifice and loss, yet the princess's actions suggested a new possibility. Even in times of war, compassion and ingenuity could create solutions that benefited everyone. Humans embraced this lesson eagerly, sharing knowledge, tools, and ideas across systems. Engineers modified transport drones to carry supplies efficiently. Diplomats facilitated conversations that avoided unnecessary confrontations. Citizens, inspired by the princess's example, organized educational programs to teach children about collaboration, strategy, and problem-solving. The galaxy was learning that intelligence and courage, not only power, could define leadership. As weeks turned into months, the interactions between Lyra, Corin, and human colonies deepened. The princesses began holding joint councils with human representatives. Lyra introduced networked strategy sessions, where multiple systems could share information instantly and make collective decisions. Corin emphasized clarity of action and leadership by example, visiting colonies, stations, and fleets to observe firsthand. Humans adapted quickly, learning to communicate efficiently, make decisions under pressure, and balance differing approaches. For many, it was a moment of awakening. Humanity was no longer passive or secondary in the galaxy. Their ingenuity and adaptability had become essential to maintaining balance and resolving conflicts. Tensions continued to arise, however, because the galaxy was not uniform. Some systems resisted change, clinging to old hierarchies and traditions. When an industrial planet resisted joining the cooperative network, Lyra sent carefully crafted messages explaining potential benefits, while Corin personally visited key leaders to demonstrate trust and confidence. Humans helped facilitate communications and provided logistical support. Slowly, what had seemed an intractable problem transformed into a dialogue, opening the door for future cooperation. Lyra and Corin, once rivals in philosophy and approach, began to see the value of combining intelligence, diplomacy, and courage with human adaptability. Their collaboration was becoming a model for others across the galaxy. Meanwhile, ordinary humans witnessed remarkable transformations in themselves and their communities. Fleet pilots learned to anticipate complex scenarios, engineers solved problems previously considered impossible, and diplomats negotiated agreements that benefited multiple worlds. Stories of human ingenuity spread faster than the movements of fleets or the deployment of ships. Across star systems, humans were beginning to be recognized not for their raw power, but for their adaptability, creativity, and resilience. Even the princesses noted this development, often praising human contributions in private communications. In a galaxy where alien civilizations had long dominated, humans were emerging as true partners and influencers. One particularly memorable event occurred in the star system of Tellara. A new trade route was opening, connecting multiple colonies and resources. Initial surveys suggested that travel would be difficult, with shifting asteroid fields and unpredictable energy surges. Lyra designed a network of guidance beacons, while Corin personally supervised the placement of protective measures along the route. Humans acted as coordinators and implementers, ensuring that every station, vessel, and cargo transport could navigate safely. The result was a flawless opening of the trade route, hailed as a triumph of cooperation. Observers remarked that it was not just alien ingenuity or human skill alone that had achieved success, but a combination of both, guided by shared vision and trust. By the end of the second quarter of the year, the war that had once seemed inevitable was taking on a different character. Where conflict had threatened chaos, collaboration now suggested hope. Lyra and Corin, once rivals, began communicating with increasing respect and understanding. Humans, inspired by their example, grew in confidence, ingenuity, and capability. The galaxy, for the first time in generations, began to see the possibility of resolving disputes without destruction, relying on creativity, intelligence, and courage instead. As Part 2 closed, a subtle but powerful truth emerged. The galaxy's future was no longer predetermined by old powers or raw strength. Intelligence, creativity, collaboration, and courage had become the guiding forces. Humans, once underestimated, had stepped forward, learning from Lyra and Corin while contributing their unique perspective. The war was still ongoing, but it was evolving into something unexpected, a complex dance of strategy, negotiation, and innovation where victory was measured not by domination, but by wisdom, adaptability, and shared success. And so the galaxy braced itself not for a disaster, but for a transformation. The presence of the two alien princesses, far from bringing only fear, had begun to awaken the potential in humans and in the countless civilizations that watched. The stage was set for the next phase, where curiosity, courage, and cooperation would determine not only the outcome of the war, but the very future of the galaxy itself. The galaxy was no longer the same as it had been when the two princesses first arrived. Princess Lyra and Princess Corin had transformed the war from a mere conflict of planets into a stage where ideas, ingenuity, and courage determined outcomes. Yet, even as peace slowly grew in some areas, challenges loomed elsewhere. The outer rim systems were still unstable, supply lines threatened by unpredictable cosmic phenomena, and many civilizations resisted change, clinging to old methods. Humanity, now recognized as a valuable partner, prepared to take on more responsibility, guided by the wisdom of the princesses and their own growing ingenuity. The first major test of the evolving alliances came in the star system of Drevora. Known for its floating archipelagos of gas clouds and energy-rich moons, Drevora had long been a place where disputes escalated quickly. A coalition of minor planets, there had begun competing for control over a series of rare energy crystals. While the conflict had the potential to erupt into open chaos, the presence of the princesses and the humans offered a new solution. Lyra saw Drevora as an opportunity to demonstrate the power of careful planning. She proposed a system where the energy crystals could be shared through timed rotations, ensuring that each planet benefited equally. Corin, favoring action over theory, volunteered to oversee the first rotations personally, ensuring that agreements were followed smoothly and fairly. Humans played a central role. Fleet coordinators managed transportation schedules, engineers created efficient containment systems for the crystals, and diplomats mediated discussions when disagreements arose. Citizens from all planets involved watched in fascination, as a solution that had seemed impossible just months before unfolded before their eyes. The success in Drevora became a symbol of what could be achieved when intelligence, courage, and collaboration replaced fear and suspicion. While the Drevora operation was underway, Lyra and Corin faced another challenge. Each had to reconcile not only their differences, but also their perceptions of humanity. Lyra admired the human capacity for strategy and foresight. She noticed how human planners could adapt quickly when new information arrived, sometimes in ways even she had not anticipated. Corin, on the other hand, was impressed by human courage and initiative. She observed how fleet pilots and engineers were willing to experiment, try new methods, and take responsibility for outcomes without fear. Both princesses realized that humans were not just learners but partners, capable of contributing ideas that were as valuable as any alien innovation. Tensions did arise, naturally, as the scale of cooperation expanded. A minor disagreement emerged between two human colonies regarding the allocation of Drevora's energy resources. Each side felt that they had contributed more to the planning and deserved priority access. Lyra proposed a networked calculation, analyzing production, transportation, and usage data to ensure fairness. Corin emphasized the importance of direct dialogue, arranging meetings between the colony leaders where misunderstandings could be addressed face-to-face. The combination of data and personal engagement allowed the conflict to be resolved amicably, providing a model that would later be applied across other contested systems. Meanwhile, other systems began sending envoys to observe the ongoing cooperation. Humans were no longer merely participants. They were instructors, guiding newcomers through Lyra's and Corin's combined methods. Schools were established on several planets to teach collaboration, negotiation, and innovation. Fleet officers trained in scenario simulations that combined both approaches, learning to balance planning and action. Scientists studied how to integrate Zithara's energy manipulation techniques with Vihara's durable technology, producing hybrid designs that exceeded the capabilities of either system alone. Across the galaxy, the reputation of humans rose steadily, and even the most skeptical observers began to recognize their value. Yet, despite these successes, uncertainty lingered. The galaxy was vast, and not all civilizations were ready to accept change. In one system, the industrial planets of Harova resisted joining the cooperative framework. Leaders there feared that sharing resources and knowledge would weaken their position. Lyra responded by presenting simulations showing how cooperation could increase productivity and reduce risks. Corin personally met the planetary governors, sharing stories of other successful collaborations and demonstrating that working together did not mean losing autonomy. Humans acted as neutral facilitators, translating technical details and mediating negotiations. Slowly, the Harova planets agreed to participate, realizing that collaboration could be mutually beneficial. Amid these political and logistical challenges, the princesses also began to experiment with more innovative approaches to problem-solving. Lyra introduced what she called shared vision strategy, a system in which multiple civilizations contributed ideas simultaneously to solve a problem. Corin emphasized demonstrative leadership, where leaders showed courage and initiative through visible actions, inspiring others to follow. Humans learned to combine these methods with their own instincts, creating a hybrid approach that proved remarkably effective. Fleets and colonies operated with more coordination than ever, often anticipating potential conflicts before they arose. Citizens began to feel a sense of pride in their roles, understanding that their intelligence, creativity, and courage could shape events across the stars. The evolution of cooperation reached a new level during the construction of the Luminara Trade Corridor. The corridor was intended to connect dozens of colonies and resource-rich planets, creating faster, safer routes for trade and communication. Previous attempts had failed because of unpredictable energy surges and floating asteroid clusters. Lyra designed a network of energy stabilizers and navigational beacons to guide ships safely. Corin supervised the initial installations, ensuring that the plans were executed efficiently and reliably. Humans coordinated fleets of construction vessels, monitored safety protocols, and managed communication networks. When the corridor opened, the success was unprecedented. Trade flourished, communications improved, and human ingenuity received widespread recognition as a crucial component of the achievement. While technological and strategic challenges dominated, cultural exchange grew equally important. Humans, Lyra and Corin, encouraged the sharing of art, music, philosophy, and science between civilizations. Holovideos, educational programs, and interactive simulations allowed people from distant systems to learn from one another. Humans absorbed lessons from Zithara's crystalline engineering and Vihara's heat-resistant technology, while contributing their own approaches to problem-solving and cooperation. The galaxy, once divided by fear and suspicion, began to experience a sense of shared identity, strengthened by the guidance of the princesses and the initiative of humans. Even the young and ordinary citizens found ways to contribute. Children built small models of energy transport systems, inspired by the real projects unfolding around them. Citizens organized observation clubs, tracking movements of fleets and analyzing decisions made by leaders. Communities experimented with local energy solutions, often guided by lessons learned from interstellar collaboration. Across planets, people began to understand that intelligence, creativity, and courage could have tangible effects, no matter the size or wealth of their homeworld. In this way, the war, once a source of fear, became a classroom where every being could learn and grow. Despite the optimism, subtle tensions persisted. Some systems continued to resist cooperation, and cosmic phenomena, such as energy surges, meteor showers, and shifting gravitational fields, presented unpredictable challenges. Lyra and Corin addressed these issues with complementary approaches. Lyra used data analysis, simulations, and strategic planning, while Corin led field operations, encouraging teams to respond creatively and confidently. Humans acted as intermediaries, balancing calculation with initiative. These combined efforts allowed the galaxy to navigate challenges more effectively than ever before, strengthening bonds between civilizations and building a sense of shared responsibility. One pivotal moment came during a simulated energy redistribution exercise in the Zethara cluster. Lyra designed a complex algorithm to ensure that every colony received fair access to energy resources. Corin supervised live coordination with human operators, guiding fleets, monitoring performance, and adjusting plans on the spot. Unexpected fluctuations occurred, testing both strategy and leadership. Humans, using creativity and quick thinking, identified novel solutions that Lyra's simulations had not predicted. The successful resolution of the exercise became a celebrated demonstration of cooperation, highlighting the value of combining intelligence, courage, and adaptability. As months passed, Lyra, Corin, and humans grew increasingly aware of a new principle. The galaxy could be shaped not only by power but by wisdom, initiative, and collaboration. Systems previously considered weak or insignificant began to play vital roles. Humans, once minor observers, became innovators, negotiators, and coordinators. Citizens discovered that courage and creativity could influence events on a galactic scale. Lyra and Corin, initially rivals in philosophy and method, began to work as partners, recognizing that their combined guidance created opportunities beyond what either could achieve alone. The most remarkable development was the transformation of human self-perception. People who had doubted their capabilities now acted with confidence. Fleet officers trusted their judgment. Engineers proposed designs integrating alien and human technologies. Diplomats negotiated with clarity and insight, often mediating disputes between civilizations far larger and older than their own. The galaxy had become a place where courage, intelligence, and creativity mattered more than age, size, or tradition. Humanity had stepped into its own, guided by the wisdom of two alien princesses yet defined by its own potential. By the end of this phase, the war had shifted dramatically. Battles were no longer fought solely with weapons or brute force. Conflicts became opportunities for negotiation, innovation, and collaboration. Challenges, from resource allocation to interstellar transportation, were approached with a combination of planning, leadership, and creativity. Humans had proven themselves to be capable partners, learning from and contributing to Lyra and Corin's methods. Across the galaxy, civilizations began to see a future where cooperation and ingenuity could replace fear and suspicion, even in times of great uncertainty. As Part 3 concluded, a quiet but powerful awareness spread throughout the stars. The galaxy was no longer defined by fear of domination or endless conflict. The presence of Lyra and Corin had awakened potential in humans and other civilizations alike. Problems that had once seemed insurmountable were now approached with creativity, courage, and collaboration. The next stage of the story promised even greater challenges, opportunities, and revelations. Humanity, standing alongside two alien princesses, was poised not only to influence the outcome of the war, but to help shape the very structure of the galaxy itself. The galaxy had entered a new era, one defined by intelligence, courage, and unity, and the promise of what could be achieved had never been greater. The galaxy had changed. What had begun as a distant war, full of uncertainty and fear, had transformed into something remarkable. Princess Lyra and Princess Corin, once considered distant figures of power, had become symbols of wisdom, courage, and cooperation. Humans, who had started as mere observers, now stood at the heart of galactic affairs. Every planet, every system, and every citizen watched closely as the next stage of the conflict approached. It was no longer a war of destruction. It was a challenge to shape the future, a test of intelligence, creativity, and leadership. The first sign of change came from the neutral systems in the outer rim. Many had hesitated to join any alliance, fearing the influence of larger powers. Now, seeing Lyra and Corin's success and humans' growing role, they began to reconsider. Envoys traveled from system to system, carrying messages of cooperation and opportunity. Humans facilitated these discussions, translating complex alien ideas and ensuring that every voice could be heard. The Outer Rim, once considered unstable and unmanageable, began to participate in planning, logistics, and even strategy. The galaxy watched in awe as civilizations once divided by fear began to communicate and collaborate. The next challenge was larger, coordinating a new network of trade, energy, and knowledge across the most contested regions. Previously, the galaxy had relied on slow, fragmented communication, leading to misunderstandings and inefficiencies. Lyra proposed a system of interconnected communication hubs, where every planet could share data instantly. Corin added a system of oversight, traveling personally to key hubs to ensure coordination and inspire confidence. Humans managed the implementation, designing efficient protocols and creating simulations to test the system before launch. It was a massive undertaking, requiring precision, creativity, and trust, but it worked. By the end of the month, messages traveled instantly across hundreds of light years, and coordination between civilizations reached unprecedented levels. As the communication network stabilized, the princesses focused on collaboration in resource management. Planets rich in energy, minerals, and other essential resources were linked with those lacking them. Previously, these systems had competed aggressively, often creating tension or conflict. Lyra designed algorithms that ensured fair allocation, while Corin personally supervised initial operations to build trust. Humans monitored shipments, adjusted calculations in real time, and facilitated discussions when disagreements arose. What had once been a potential source of war now became a symbol of cooperation. Citizens across the galaxy marveled at the efficiency and fairness of the new system, realizing that intelligence, courage, and collaboration could replace competition and fear. In parallel, Lyra and Corin introduced new programs to train young leaders and innovators. Schools and academies emerged on multiple planets, teaching problem-solving, communication, and leadership skills. Humans played a central role, sharing lessons learned from their experiences during the early phases of the conflict. Fleet officers studied the combined strategies of Lyra and Corin, learning to balance planning and decisive action. Engineers experimented with hybrid technologies, integrating Zithara's crystalline innovations with Vihara's durable designs. Children, inspired by the successes of their leaders, built models, simulations, and small projects, dreaming of a future where cooperation could solve the galaxy's greatest challenges. Across civilizations, a sense of shared purpose and possibility flourished. Even the most resistant systems began to join. Initially skeptical planets, worried about losing autonomy, saw the results of collaboration firsthand. On the industrial world of Harova, citizens observed the fair and efficient distribution of resources, the creation of secure trade routes, and the stability brought by collective decision-making. Inspired, local leaders initiated discussions with neighboring systems. Humans acted as neutral facilitators, translating messages, resolving disputes, and helping implement solutions. Lyra provided strategic guidance, ensuring that decisions aligned with long-term benefits. Corin offered personal support, encouraging leaders to take initiative and demonstrate courage. Slowly, trust grew, and what had once seemed impossible became reality. The culmination of these efforts came during the opening of the Galactic Unity Festival. The event, held in the neutral system of Halcyon, celebrated cooperation, innovation, and learning. Hundreds of civilizations participated, sending delegations to showcase achievements, share knowledge, and discuss future projects. Humans displayed innovations inspired by both princesses, demonstrating how intelligence, adaptability, and courage could solve complex problems. Lyra presented advanced strategies for energy management and trade, while Corin demonstrated leadership and coordination techniques that inspired confidence in young leaders. The festival was not just a celebration. It was a statement that the galaxy could work together, overcoming fear and suspicion to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Amid the festival, an unexpected challenge emerged. A sudden energy surge threatened to disrupt the communication hubs connecting multiple systems. The surge, if left unchecked, could have caused confusion, delays, and even the failure of ongoing operations. Lyra quickly analyzed the data, proposing a solution that involved rerouting energy flows and stabilizing key nodes. Corin led a team to implement adjustments, ensuring that systems remained operational and safe. Humans coordinated the efforts, monitoring multiple points simultaneously, adjusting calculations, and communicating with the affected planets. The crisis was averted without incident, demonstrating the effectiveness of combined intelligence, leadership, and human initiative. It was a moment that reinforced the lesson that courage and ingenuity, not fear or force, could solve even the most complex problems. As the festival progressed, citizens from across the galaxy observed not just the resolution of conflicts, but the transformation of their own societies. Trade routes became more efficient, educational programs spread, and communication improved. Humans were celebrated not only for their contributions, but for their willingness to learn, adapt, and lead. They had moved from observers to innovators, strategists, and coordinators. Fleet officers who had once doubted their abilities now commanded respect. Engineers applied hybrid technologies in practical ways. Diplomats guided negotiations that created lasting agreements. Across civilizations, people began to understand that leadership was not about dominance, but about courage, creativity, and collaboration. Meanwhile, Lyra and Corin reflected on the progress. Initially, they had approached each other cautiously, aware of philosophical differences. Lyra valued strategy and foresight, while Corin emphasized courage and direct action. Over time, however, they had come to see the value of combining their approaches. Lyra admired Corin's decisiveness and the ability to inspire confidence through action. Corin respected Lyra's careful planning and analytical mind, which prevented unnecessary risks. Together, they had guided humanity and other civilizations toward a new model of leadership, one based on cooperation, creativity, and shared responsibility. The success of the festival set the stage for the final transformation of the galaxy. Lyra proposed the creation of the Galactic Council, a body where representatives from every system could meet regularly, share knowledge, and coordinate policies. Corin suggested a mentorship program in which experienced leaders would guide new participants, building confidence and competence. Humans took central roles in both initiatives, using their experience and ingenuity to organize structures, manage communications, and facilitate understanding. The council and mentorship programs were designed to prevent future conflicts, promote innovation, and ensure that no civilization felt marginalized or powerless. As the months passed, the influence of the princesses and humans continued to grow. Systems that had once been isolated or fearful became active participants in decision-making. Citizens took pride in contributing ideas, solutions, and innovations. Fleet commanders and engineers collaborated across planetary boundaries. Schools integrated lessons learned from both princesses and humans, teaching the next generation the value of intelligence, courage, and collaboration. The galaxy, once fragmented by fear and suspicion, had begun to function as a coherent, creative, and resilient community. Even small, everyday actions reflected this transformation. Children played strategic games based on real-life cooperation scenarios. Citizens participated in community projects inspired by interstellar initiatives. Scientists shared data openly, engineers exchanged designs, and diplomats sought understanding rather than advantage. Humans, once underestimated, were recognized as central contributors to this new era. Lyra and Corin continued to guide, inspire, and support, but the galaxy's success was no longer dependent solely on them. Humanity and other civilizations had embraced the principles of creativity, courage, and collaboration, ensuring that progress would continue independently. By the time the first anniversary of the princesses' arrival approached, the galaxy had fully entered a new era. The war that had threatened chaos and fear had evolved into an opportunity for growth, learning, and cooperation. Humans had emerged as leaders, strategists, and innovators, guiding the galaxy alongside two remarkable alien princesses. Citizens understood that intelligence, courage, and collaboration could achieve more than fear or domination ever could. The universe, once uncertain and divided, was now moving toward a future of shared responsibility, mutual respect, and boundless potential. As the anniversary celebrations began, Lyra and Corin stood side by side, observing the transformed galaxy. Humans, fleet officers, engineers, diplomats, and citizens from countless civilizations participated in ceremonies, demonstrations, and educational programs. The princesses saw not just the results of their guidance, but the creativity, courage, and initiative of those they had inspired. The galaxy had learned a lesson more valuable than any strategy or plan. Progress depended on collaboration, intelligence, and courage from every being willing to contribute. In that moment, Lyra spoke quietly to Corin. "I never imagined that humans could contribute so much," she said. "Their creativity and courage have changed everything." Corin smiled. "I knew they had potential," she replied. "I just didn't know how quickly they would rise to meet it." Together, we've shown the galaxy that leadership is about guidance, not control, and that cooperation can achieve what domination never could. They both looked out at the stars, aware that the galaxy's future was brighter than ever. The final lesson of the war became clear to everyone. Victory was no longer measured by who controlled the most systems, amassed the most resources, or commanded the largest fleets. True victory was the creation of a galaxy where intelligence, courage, and collaboration allowed every civilization to thrive. Humans, guided by the example and mentorship of Princess Lyra and Princess Corin, had proven themselves not only capable but essential. They had learned that even in the vastness of space, small actions, creative thinking, and courage could shape the course of history. And so, the galaxy entered its new era. Wars became rare, and disputes were solved through discussion, creativity, and cooperation. Humans, Lyra, Corin, and countless other civilizations continued to explore, innovate, and build together. The story of two alien princesses entering the war had begun as a tale of potential chaos, but it ended as a testament to the power of courage, intelligence, and collaboration. The galaxy braced no longer for chaos, but for possibility, growth, and shared greatness. The future had arrived, and humanity, standing alongside the greatest leaders of the galaxy, was ready. Two alien princesses entered the war, and the galaxy braced for chaos.